And we're back in Paris at the UN Climate Summit, and our correspondent Alex Newman is there in the press room. Alex, what's new on the table now?
The latest thing that I've seen is John Kerry apparently has doubled the amount of U.S. taxpayer money, or better yet, borrowed money from Communist China and other governments. The U.S. government is so far in debt that they're going to be pledging and putting into this green climate, I call it the Green Climate Slush Fund, they call it the GCF, the Green Climate Fund. And I guess the idea behind this fund is that the Western governments and Western societies caused global warming with their carbon emissions and their industrial progress. And so now we owe third world governments and dictatorships lots of climate reparations. And so John Kerry just doubled the amount of money that the United States is going to supposedly put into it. I'm not sure where he gets the idea that they can just pledge money. As far as I understand, in Congress, both in the House and in the Senate, lawmakers are saying that they are not going to be providing money for this global warming stuff. But you know how Congress is, they say a lot of things and then do the opposite. So maybe Congress is on board, maybe they're not. It hasn't been clear from what's been announced here and from the different news and press releases and statements by the activists. But all the activists are very excited about this new pledge. They say, oh, all these new bribes will certainly help facilitate getting a global warming treaty out of Paris.
There are a number of issues involved in anything like this, one of which is that Kerry himself, right at the beginning of the summit, caused waves on the green side of the aisle by saying that this agreement would not be a treaty, would not be binding, which Laurent Fabius, the French foreign minister who's in charge of the summit there, and others from the environmental groups went a little bit crazy over that, saying, what do you mean it's not going to be binding? Of course it has to be binding on it. So he's been getting some flack on that, and do you think that this might be a way to placate some of the critics?
That could be. They're really twisting themselves into pretzels here over the binding, non-binding thing. The issue essentially boils down to Obama knows the Senate is not going to ratify anything coming out of here as a treaty. He needs 2/3 of the senators to vote for this. Senator Inhofe, the chairman of the Environment Committee, has already said it's not happening. Don't waste your time. It's not getting through the Senate. And so the Obama administration and the French government, they said this months ago, and of course the United Nations, they all understand that there's not going to be any kind of binding treaty ratified by the U.S. Senate. So they're really walking a fine line here. They're trying to say that it is a binding treaty, but that it isn't a binding treaty. And actually, yesterday I got a press release from some so-called environmental lawyers pretending like a treaty means something different in quote-unquote international law than it means in American law. Now, of course, that's all nonsense. If the Senate does not ratify it, it is not a binding treaty as far as the United States is concerned. Now, the way Obama's finagling all this, he's basically saying, well, I have this clean power plan that's going to reduce our emissions. I'm going to impose it unilaterally through the EPA and other federal agencies. And so that's how we can come home with this alleged agreement on global warming. But it's really bizarre to watch them try to explain this and to try to wiggle their way around this. Early on, the French foreign minister said that this was going to have to bypass the U.S. Congress. Of course, the Obama administration knew that full well as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here.
We'll check back with you a little bit later when you get back from your other engagements and get another report from you. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, guys.